What is going on, party people? We are talking about one of my favorite subjects today, and that is workflow, and more specifically, Lightroom. So do me a favor, let me know where you're joining from in the comments below. With less than 2 minutes to go, guys, we are ready to get started. I'm getting pumped. This music gets me jacked up. So I want to know, where are you joining from? And start getting your Lightroom questions ready. Hello and welcome to today's live stream. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We are in. I wish I had some like windows so I can see what it's doing outside. So I need you to let me know, what is the weather like where you are joining from. I want some inspiration. I want to feel like I'm on like a beach or something somewhere. Let me know. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Lightroom. So Lightroom's been around for ages, and to me, it keeps getting better over time. I swear Lightroom is like a fine wine. Now, sometimes you try wine and you don't like it, and that's some of the updates, we haven't really liked per se, but sometimes over, with age, it just keeps getting better and better. So I want to know if you do have Lightroom questions. I'm happy to answer them. I've been using them for my weddings, for my portraits, and also for my landscape stuff now, landscape/travel, for the last probably 10 years, if not longer. So let me know if you do have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But it's not like a full-on Lightroom class today. It's more like a couple tips that, I've learned along the way that, just make life a little bit easier in Lightroom. And, when you're doing this for business and even, I guess, personal, time is money. And if you can do things that will speed up your process or, help you out and help you be better, then it's definitely worth, having that investment. So I do want to say hello to a few friends of the show. Hello, our friend over at Tech Gear Talk. I was just in the store, so it was good seeing you and catching up. So thank you for jumping on the live stream. And then our friends Jen and Travis Stitt, they will be joining us for Pixel Photo Fest, which is a couple weeks away. So if you haven't checked out their work, definitely look there. And then my friend Mike Giuliano. Hello, my friend from Cleveland, joining us from sunny Cleveland, Ohio. So thank you so much, guys, for joining in. And it looks like there's at least 8 or 9 other people out there. So I'm watching you. I want to know who's out there lurking. Let me know in the comments below. So let's go ahead and get right into it today. So 5 tips to speed up your workflow is what we're going to be talking about. But before we do, just some housekeeping notes. We are here open at the store from 10 to 7 Monday through Friday and 10 to 5 on Saturday. So if you need absolutely anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are here to help you. The store's open. We just ask that you do wear a mask. And honestly, if you don't feel comfortable coming in the store, that's totally fine. Like we get that. You can just give us a call, and we have curbside pickup available as well as shipping on thousands of items at our store. So again, if there's absolutely anything that you need from us, please let us know. And if you are planning on coming into the store, I wanted to let you know about a couple of things that we're doing to make sure that everything is safe and sound. So number one, our facility is disinfected multiple times a day. We're wiping down equipment and surfaces constantly through so much sanitizer and cleaning stuff. Like we just want to make sure that our creative community feels safe when they're shopping here. Our team members are symptom free and wearing masks. Everybody that's here, we're wearing masks. We're doing our best to stay healthy. So again, just doing our part. And like I said, we've sanitized every piece of equipment before, another customer gets a hold of it. So again, we want you to feel nice, safe, and sound. So what are our goals for today? So number one is to pull you away from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that is going on in the world around us and remind you that you have this hobby that is it's pretty freaking awesome. I mean, we can all agree on that photography is awesome, that it has this ability to pull us away from the stressors in our life. And again, we can just deep dive into some photos and disappear for, half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour. And that's kind of my goal here today, is to get you thinking about Lightroom and how you can improve your workflow and kind of pull you away from that fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt. Also, it's my goal to get you motivated to try something new, something outside your comfort zone. Maybe you've never tried Lightroom. Maybe you're on Capture One, or maybe you're, editing each file one by one in Photoshop. Whatever it might be, my goal is to get you motivated and get you outside of that comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens and that's where the growth happens. And then finally, I'm hoping that I can help you discover a new piece in your workflow, a new niche that could become profitable. So maybe you haven't done portraits because you didn't feel like you had the workflow, to back it up. Or, I'm going to be talking a little bit about backup workflows here. Maybe you just didn't want to take on that risk of taking on a wedding, and you have this fear of losing those files. And, that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is just how we can improve your workflow. And as always, if you have, if you need anything like links in the presentation, just reach out to social@thepixelconnection.com, and I'll be sure to get everything sent over to you. Again, I'm an open book when it comes to knowledge and helping. So anything that I can do to help you, I will absolutely do that. So Let's go ahead and get started. So, what exactly is Lightroom? Well, Lightroom is what you call a DAM, or a digital asset management tool. And what it does is it allows you to catalog files. It allows you to look at all the metadata and sort your files by metadata. And some of that metadata might be what camera you are using. It could be GPS locations for a trip that you were on. There's a lot of things that kind of fall into that metadata. And the cool thing about Lightroom is you can quickly and easily find those files. And that's really where the magic happens. So instead of just having, a bunch of files on a hard drive, you're going to be able to just go through and find those files instantly. So Lightroom does a really good job of that. Lightroom does keywording, it does rating, it does facial recognition, in that you can highlight a face and then you can sort by faces. So if you are looking for like a bridal party, for example, you can have it, show all the pictures of the bride. Or for more family, more personal stuff, it'll automatically find all the pictures of you, or I think they even added pets. Don't quote me on that, but I know they did some stuff with pets not too long ago. But family, friends, they'll all, you can put those into collections. Lightroom is a tool that allows you basic edits of your photos in a non-destructive way. So when I say basic edits, I don't mean that, this is only you're going to have to use other programs in order to, finish out your photos, because I'm of the belief that you can probably get 80 to 90% of your photos edited in Lightroom. But whenever you have to do a little bit more heavy lifting, maybe some heavier retouching, or some more, you want layers, things like that, you're going to have to bounce out to a different program. But for 80 to 90% of my own things, I just hang out in Lightroom. It's more than enough for me. There is that occasional time when I want to do some cool, focus stacking, or I need the access to layers, so I'll jump to Photoshop. But most of the time I'm hanging out in Lightroom. And then finally, Lightroom allows you to share your photos with family, friends, and clients. So from within Lightroom, you can actually share, you can create slideshows, you can, publish right to Adobe Portfolio, which actually, if you're a college student out there, they've now added it where you get a free full year of Adobe Portfolio for college students. So again, that might be something that as you are leaving college and you're looking for a place to display your work online, you can take advantage of that Adobe Portfolio. It allows you to share directly to social media. And then it does have a print module as well, if you want to make everything from a couple 4x6s or 5x7s to big canvases, even to books. So, that's all available from within Lightroom. So there is some, question of, well, then what isn't Lightroom? And like I mentioned before, it's not a high-end editor. It's not something that can do a ton of, heavy edits on photos. Like I said, if you want to do, retouching, if you want to do focus stacking, if you want to get, granular access to panoramas, HDR images, it'll do like a basic merge for you of those files. But if you want that granular, being able to go into each individual pixel and like add layer, it's just not going to be for that. But like I said, 80 to 90% of my stuff, I have no problem knocking it out in Lightroom. And that goes for the travel stuff as well as the, portraits and the travel stuff that I've been posting recently. So what is the Creative Cloud? So especially when this first came out, they came out with Lightroom, and then they came out with Lightroom Classic, and that's how it even is today. But what exactly is this Creative Cloud that everybody's been talking about? Or what is this subscription? Why do I have to pay every month? And Creative Cloud is this idea that, Adobe took this approach to the software of faster releases and being able to build faster, but also tying the apps together. So I can open up a web application like Spark to create a couple graphics for social media, and I have access to all of my Lightroom photos. So again, that saves me as a creator, as a business owner, a ton of time, because I'm not going to Lightroom, exporting the perfect image, and then opening up my graphic design software in order to, make that graphic for my story or my post, whatever it might be. I just have access directly to my cloud, right access to my libraries right there. So again, it makes things a lot easier. There is a level of syncing as well as, for like preferences, things like that. So Creative Cloud is what allows all of this stuff to happen. Also, that's really nice about Creative Cloud is I can make edits on the go. On my phone, I can make edits in Lightroom, and they automatically are on my desktop computer, or any device that I have connected to the cloud. So, I'm a believer that Lightroom, or Creative Cloud is a good thing, or it has been a good thing for me as a creative in my workflow. So, what are some of those advantages? So, number one, you have no large purchase every couple years. So, I remember back in the day when Master Collection, it was like $2,700 if I remember right with CS6. So, that's a lot of money. So, let's say you only needed, and even out of Master Collection, I was only using one or two apps, but I would have had to pay for all of those apps. This allows me a little bit more granular access. If I want everything, if I only want Photoshop and Lightroom, if I only want a single app, I'm able to do that. So I don't have that large purchase every couple years. Also, it allows for quicker development releases. So again, we've seen how fast Lightroom can push out, updates because they're not waiting for that big purchase every couple year. They weren't doing, a new suite every year, every 18 months and waiting to put features out. Now they're doing them, a couple times a year. So we're not having to wait for, annual or biannual updates to the software. We're getting it very, it's all very readily available. You also get camera support much faster. So before the R5 and R6 were even announced, I noticed that Adobe already had support for those cameras. So on day one, when someone gets that camera, they're going to have that support. They're going to have the ability to edit those raw files, edit that video file. And that's because they're doing quicker development cycles and they can just add that to a sprint with the development and get to it. It also allows you to have storage and syncing. So you get a certain amount depending on the level of Creative Cloud that you pay for. You have a level of cloud storage. So that's what allows you to sync between like mobile apps or computers or the web because you have a certain amount of storage. Also, what I like about it, it's a lower barrier to entry when you want to grow. So maybe you're a photographer right now and you want to get into editing video. Well, spoiler alert, for a low price, you can download all the tools that they're using on Major Motion Pictures, and you now have that on your laptop with Premiere or with the motion graphic stuff, with the audio editing. Like you have access to all these tools at your disposal for a low monthly fee. So the barrier to entry for creatives is much lower. So, that's something that I can definitely get behind. Also, the ability to have mobile apps. Like I was mentioning earlier, I love having access to all my files right here on my phone. So it makes it so much easier to share to Instagram. It allows me to post daily. It allows me to, quickly get photos for a client. I can work mobily now almost anywhere, sitting in front of the couch just on my iPad, going through and calling pictures. I remember when I was shooting a lot more weddings, was doing culling on my phone because I can just swipe up and down for my pics. So again, this I found was the quickest way for me to cull through instead of having to go to my computer, turn it on, open Lightroom and, sit there and focus and go through them. I could quickly go through them on my phone. Also, the ability to have access to your files anywhere, like I said, but then finally install as many computers as you want. But there is a small caveat there. You can activate two at a time. So for example, I have the apps installed on my home desktop computer, my home, which is a Windows machine. I have them on my Surface Book Pro. I have them on my MacBook Pro. I have them on my wife's MacBook Pro. So it's on all these different devices and even my sister-in-law's computer as well. So as long as only two people are using them at a time, that's totally fine to do. So it's nice too to have that backup. So if something happened to my laptop, I can jump onto my wife's laptop and still have access to files and still be able to, get the job done, if you will. So a lot of people ask me this question, and that is, I'm kind of confused because there's a couple different versions of Lightroom. What is good for me? Well, Lightroom Classic is the workhorse in more of a studio setting in that you can, go through and edit your files. It has all the features of Lightroom, and that's best for like a desktop. Lightroom CC is kind of for your mobile device, or if you're just getting started, I often recommend Lightroom CC, or if you need to access your stuff from a web browser. There's been many times where I've been at work or I've been somewhere where I don't have access to my computer that I could just pull up a web browser on, even out on the floor. Like let's say I need quick access to a file while I'm here at work, I can just go to a computer and just go to Lightroom and I'm able to, the website, and I'm able to have access to my catalog. And this is also nice if you have a Chromebook. You're able to, pull those files in and, make those edits. And I also, as I know Jen's in here, one thing that really kind of woke me up, I guess, to using the Lightroom Creative Cloud was kind of how, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you do this or not, but it's a great way if you have someone else doing your calling for you, you're able to, add those files to a folder, and then someone on their iPad can do the calling for you. So if you do hire somebody in order to do that, they can just you can just create that shared gallery, and they're able to make those calls. And then in your own Lightroom Classic, it's going to, show those polls and those edits and those ratings. So, that's something that's super useful as well. So we did have our first come in, and I want to attack these, as they do come in. Mike wants to know, is there a way to use both Classic and CC together? Absolutely. So Classic is going to be, more catalog based in that it's going to live like on a hard drive. But CC is going to be more of a web-based catalog. So you have access to, as long as you have created, cloud libraries, you'll be able to access them. So yes, you can use them both together. So for example, if I need quick access to a file, then I'm using Lightroom CC, but most of the time I'm hanging out in Lightroom Classic. Jen says, I love having remote calling for my staff. It's awesome. Game changer for me. So that does confirm that I am not a liar, that they do have that in their workflow where they can have somebody else do, they can have staff elsewhere, at any time of the day, just go through and do the calling and stuff for them. So a lot of advantages to the Creative Cloud. And I'm a supporter. I know there's a lot of people that aren't, but again, it's helped me in my business. So our first tip is to learn keyboard shortcuts. And to me, that's where it's kind of held me back from using other tools. So I do use On One. I did download Capture One and Luminar recently to start just to play with them, just so I knew kind of how to access, or I'm sorry, how to use those. So if customers came in, I'd be able to answer those questions for them. And honestly, what's holding me back from going to a lot of those tools full time is because I have an investment of my hands just know how to get access to edit files. So, if I need to crop, I know, what keyboard shortcut that is. If I need to create a virtual copy, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, my hands just work fast. I mean, it's directly connected to my brain, and I can work super fast with those keyboard shortcuts. So again, I think that would be my number one tip. If you take nothing else away from this, it would be to learn the keyboard shortcuts. So how do you find those shortcuts? Well, you can head over to Adobe's website. And again, if you need this link directly, I can go ahead and share that with you guys. But you can see here, up on the top, if we use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's our rating system. If I want to reject a file, I know that's X. If I want to go through and, do a flag, that's P. For me, it's for pick. G for grid view. So again, just learning. And honestly, you don't have to learn all these at once. It's not like you have to make flashcards to learn all of them, but pick up one or two that are just going to make your life that much easier. So again, I use the R a lot for resize. I'm trying to think of all the ones that I use. A lot of it has to do with like the picking. So the flagging, the grid view, reject, crop, rating. Those are all the ones that I use the most. But again, if you want even just this slide, I'm happy to send that to you. Just send me out a let me know. But the this one here, this link is probably the most valuable in that it has every single one of them from the Adobe website. So I'll go ahead and paste that in the chat for you guys, so that way you have access to it. But if you learn nothing else, it is definitely to learn those keyboard shortcuts, because they are definitely going to speed up your workflow. So number 2 is start with organization in mind. So this is where I royally screwed up when I first started with Lightroom, because my files were just all over the place. And I feel like I have a pretty good lock on it, how it is now. And I do want to pause and say, this workflow that I have right now is for a landscape travel, because that's really what I'm doing now, is just photographing stuff on my drive, or if I do ever get to travel again, that's what this workflow is kind of around. For weddings and stuff, I was on there for a while, I was on a single catalog per wedding. And if you want to get down and you want to talk about that, please reach out. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about that. But I did want to preface, some of these slides by saying, that's this workflow that I have now is based on date and time and travel. So you can see here on the right-hand side, this is my folder structure on the actual drive itself. So I have it sorted by the year, and then inside that I have the folder for the month, and then inside there I have the day. So a lot of times what I do is if I don't know when something happened, I will look on my phone and I will see the date and time and I'll just go find it in Lightroom. I'm horrible at keywording. I've wanted to get better at it, but I found that just going off my phone, chances are I took a photo that day and I can go back and find them. But this is how it is on my hard drive. So I have a folder with called photos, then 2020, and then the month, and then the day. And I set this up. I don't create all of this manually. So I'm not going through and creating a new folder anytime, I'm importing files. Lightroom will do that for you. It will look at the metadata for when that was captured and automatically sort it by date. And that's over on the right-hand side. When you're in the import dialog, you'll see where you're able to separate it by that date and that time. So then on the other side here, you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, it looks like you have folders for all these other things too. So this is a little bit different. And this is where the digital asset management piece really comes in with Lightroom. And that is, these are collections. So you can see here this workflow one that I have. And under there, I have 01, which is to call. Number 02 is to edit. And number 3 is ready to post. And then that final one is my portfolio collection. So, and these are all automated. So what we have is on the top level where it says workflow, that is a collection set, and collection sets house collections. So it's like a, mother or a parent-child relationship. So underneath here, I have different child collections. So you'll notice that some of those have a little sprocket or a star on them. So what that means is those are collections that are automatically created by their smart collections. So I've said, I want you to put all of the files that have not been rated yet into the to call smart collection. And now from there, once they've actually been picked, that's the logic behind number 2, which is the to edit, because they're in a state in which they have been picked, but they have not been assigned the number 3, which is the number 3 for me in my workflow is complete, ready to either post or put in the portfolio. And then finally, I have not the number 4 or 5. Those are the portfolio collection. So that's those right there. They show up after they've been rated at that level. And then you'll notice here I have a sync portfolio, and you can't sync smart collections as of right now with Lightroom. So what I do is I just copy the files into the sync portfolio, so then I have access to them on mobile. So again, I feel it's important that you start with organization in mind and how you're going to keep all your files organized, because I made the mistake before for just importing them or just adding them, and I had no idea where the files were. And then if I moved them on the hard drive, it would break Lightroom. And once you have, another pro tip would be, once you actually have these folders in Lightroom, you really want to change them in Lightroom. So let's say you want to move them somewhere else. You definitely want to move, let's say I wanted to put this 01 into 7 because there was, issue with import, whatever. You want to make that change here. You don't want to make it on the hard drive, because what'll happen is it'll go light gray because it can't find it anymore. And then you have to, find that folder by right clicking on it, then find folder. It's just more work. It's just a lot easier to go through and make the changes here. It's also worth noting any changes that you make here will make those changes on your hard drive as well. So again, on the left, we have collections, which are, they don't really move files anywhere. They just organize them for you. And then on the right is folders. So these are actually the folders on your hard drive. So any questions about that, please let me know in the comments below. So number 3 is create presets for your camera. And I did this a lot with when I was shooting a lot of G9, because I was shooting it for, when I was working for Lumix, I was, posting stuff on groups and I was sending stuff in for reports. And what I would do is I would go through and basically get my settings just right. Like if I wanted to bump just little things here and there, and then I created a preset for that camera. So then on import, you can apply a preset. So that way, when it came into Lightroom, it automatically did that. So again, these aren't going to be stylistic per se. These are kind of like baseline presets to get your basic look. So that way, when you're going through your files, you can actually make changes and get your photos done a lot quicker. So I just labeled them B01, B02, B0, and so on and so forth. But I would just name, whatever your camera is. And you can do like XT4, +2 shadows, or, -1 expose, whatever you want to do. I would just name them that. So that way, when you're importing, or even just as you're editing, you can quickly have access to those presets. And I want to know from you, do you use presets in Lightroom? Is that something that, is part of your workflow? I know there's some people that don't really use presets and they just edit each file individually. I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys use presets from within Lightroom? So again, little tip there is to create a kind of a baseline preset for each of your cameras. Number 4 is use virtual copies for multiple looks. And this is one that I do all the time. So basically, a virtual copy, you're not adding more images on your hard drive. So you don't have to worry about taking up more storage. So this is great because I can have one file and then I can apply different looks or edit it in a different way and then put them up to see which one I like better. Or if I'm delivering it to a client, a lot of times I'll do a virtual copy. And I do the shortcut for that. I want to say it's command colon. I don't know the little parentheses, not parentheses, these little things. Again, sorry for not blanking on that, but you can go back to the keyboards and you can see what that is. But that's the quick shortcut to create that virtual copy. And what I'll do is I'll apply like a black and white, or I'll give it a different look. Or if I want to edit that other file in, say, Photoshop, or I want to edit in, a different program, like On1 has a couple tools that I use that are kind of that heavy lifting. A lot of times I'll right click or do the command shortcut in order to, create that virtual copy. But again, you're not taking up any more room on your hard drive. You're not making, like if you shoot with, let's say like an A7 III or any of the A7Rs, you have these huge files. So you don't want to keep duplicating those on your hard drive. Virtual copies allow you to quickly make copies. You're not, right click copy and then waiting for it to build. But also, it's just quick access to get multiple looks. And then when you export, it'll actually apply those edits on export. So I did want to pause there for a minute because this brings up a good point about Lightroom. And this is where I see a lot of people get hung up, and they'll go in and they'll edit a file. And then when they are, they go to that file on their hard drive, they'll notice that their changes aren't there. What the heck? You know that you made changes, you applied a preset or you made it brighter or darker, whatever that is. With Lightroom is simply just a book of recipes, and you're applying those recipes to your different photos. So those recipes don't take effect until you hit that export button. That's when they finally get applied. So think of it just like cooking. Let's say all of our, items out, and, we have all of our raw meat and our vegetables and they're all sitting there, and we have our recipe. Well, if we don't chop up the onions, if we don't season, our chicken, and we don't put it into our crock pot, then it's not going to cook. It's the same thing with Lightroom, in that until you hit that export button, it's not going to, you're not going to see changes to those files. So in the case of virtual copies, you can create 5 different looks. And then once you hit export, you'll have 5 copies of that file that are there. So again, virtual copies are a great way to, make multiple looks, but also save you a lot of time. Any questions thus far before we get into our 5th and final tip? Let me know. So number 5 is, backup as often as possible. And this is one that I feel like the Creative Cloud has done a really good job of allowing me to create just-in-time backups. In that, when I was traveling for Panasonic, I was able to import the files directly from my, at that time I was using a NAR box, but I was bringing them in on my phone, and then it was automatically syncing them to the cloud, which then meant I had access to everything everywhere. So number 1, if I was, shooting a wedding this weekend, I would have a laptop set up in the corner or an iPad. So that way I can automatically just I could have the assistant just do memory card dumps, and then they get backed up. But I just wanted to, the big reason that I made this slide is to remind you to back up not only the files, but you have to back up that catalog file, because again, if we don't have our recipes, then all we don't have is raw ingredients. So we need to make sure that we're backing up our catalog and our images. So, and Lightroom does a good job of being annoying about this when you exit the program, but it'll come up and ask you, hey, we noticed you haven't backed up in a while. Would you like to? And I strongly urge you to say yes. I think we, are a lot of times we're in a hurry when we close Lightroom and we want to either go to bed because we've been up all night editing, or we're running out the door because we were editing before we went to work. And we just say, no, don't worry, I don't have time for that. Please make time for it. So what my workflow is I'm editing in Lightroom, and the cloud syncing, I don't even really count that as a backup per se, in my backup strategy. So it's doing it. That's a bonus. If I have to go access that, that means the world's on fire. So I'm working on it on my computer at home, and I'm working on it on an external hard drive. So anytime that I plug in this hard drive, and there's two hard drives present. I use a tool called Carbon Copy Cloner, CCC. Yes, Carbon Copy Cloner. And anytime it sees both of those drives, it'll kick off a automatic backup drive or a backup job that will automatically back up any changes that have happened on that drive. So from there, it goes to an external hard drive. That external hard drive is then backed up to Backblaze. So my raw files, I always have multiple copies, and I never delete the original memory card until it's in 3 places. So again, external hard drive is number 1. Number 2 is my external hard drive that stays at home, my home one, not my mobile one. And number 3 is up to Backblaze. And Backblaze you can get for, I think it's less than $10 a month, and it's unlimited backup. So that's my 3rd place. So now let's talk a little bit about the finished images, because those are going to be the unfinished work in the catalog file. On my finished work, I use a tool called SmugMug, and I've been a happy SmugMug customer now for over 10 years. I started my business with it from day one. So basically that allows me unlimited backup of JPEG images, but it also gives me a gallery I'm able to sell and do all of those things. So right from Lightroom, I export to SmugMug, and then I always have finished client work that's always saved. So again, I definitely urge you to just sit down and figure out what you're doing about backup, because you don't want to be the one that has to, call that customer and say, hey, I lost that work, or you go on a once in a lifetime trip to say Iceland or Hawaii, wherever it is, and then you lose those folders. So again, or those files, make sure that you are taking a serious consideration about, taking your backup into serious consideration. So let's look at the comments real quick. Mike Giuliano said, my first photo teacher used the exact same recipe analogy. Great minds think alike, man. Great minds think alike. And then Jim Summers says Backblaze is like $6 a month. So yeah, again, super affordable for the peace of mind, and it's unlimited, and it'll back up external hard drives. Again, I can't say enough about Backblaze. They've been a great partner for me and my business for many years. So next, if you do have any questions or you want the resources from today, please feel free to reach out to social@thepixelconnection.com. I am more than happy to help you in absolutely any way. And if you do have questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments below, or if you just want to email us, we're more than happy to help. So I did want to let you know that we do have a ton of classes that are coming up. So again, all through, we've already been doing Lightroom. I did a Lightroom Basics on Monday. We're going to do another. We're going to do Lightroom Advanced tonight from 5 to 6. We have some macro stuff, learning to live stream, starting a podcast, small business marketing. Again, we're trying to help photographers as much as humanly possible. So if you are interested in any of these classes, or if there's a class that you don't see us talking about, please reach out and let us know. Like, we want to be here to help you, to help further your, creative journey and push you down that creative path even further. So again, if there's something you want to see, please let us know. So remember, guys, practice makes perfect. And, hopefully this little talk about Lightroom is what you needed in order to speed up your workflow. If there are any tips that you have, please let us know. You can always use hashtag #OnlyAtPixel or the Pixel Connection to get your photos shared on social media, as well as our weekly newsletter, and I definitely strongly urge you to do that. Also, we do have a couple groups out there that are user groups. So if you are a Lumix user, you are an Olympus user, Fuji user, we have those groups available for you as well. So if you need anything from us, please feel free to reach out at the store. Here is all of our contact info. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again on Friday. Talk soon.